Step on a scale, plug in your height and weight into a formula, and voila, you've got your BMI. Simple, right? The problem is that number tells us almost nothing about your actual health. In fact, it's one of the most misused, misunderstood measurements in fitness and medicine. Today we're going to bust the myth on BMI. We're going to explain why it fails athletes and seniors alike and show you the real measurements that matter for your health and longevity today on the Personalized Fitness Podcast. Welcome to the Personalized Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Garrett Williamson, president of Personalized Fitness. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoy the show, please like, share, and subscribe. And remember, you can always reach us at area code 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. Or online at personalizedfitness.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Personalized Fitness. Feel free to reach out to me anytime at Garrett, Garrett, at personalizedfitness.com. All right, let's talk about why it's time to move beyond BMI. Basically, it is past time to move beyond BMI. It is past time to put this ridiculous measurement into the rearview mirror. BMI, or body mass index, has been around since the 1800s. It was originally created by Adolphe Quetelet. I don't speak French, so I'm not very good about that. But Adolphe Quetelet was a mathematician, not a physician, who was trying to describe the average man for statistical purposes. A century later, Ansel Keys popularized this quote-unquote measurement as a health marker, and it stuck. But here's the truth. BMI was never designed to measure individual health, yet it's still used by doctors, health practitioners, insurance companies, and health organizations to label people as underweight, normal, overweight, or obese. The problem? It doesn't tell you anything about fat versus muscle. It doesn't account for bone density. It doesn't measure body composition at all. That's why athletes with low body fat but high muscle mass can end up labeled obese. I've seen clients who are in phenomenal shape, strong, lean, and fit with a BMI in the overweight category. On the flip side, many seniors, particularly those from the baby boomer generation, fall into the normal range on the BMI chart because they appear thin, but thanks to decades of cutting back on food rather than, especially after the so-called lipid hypothesis, many of them have high body fat percentages and low muscle mass. They look healthy on paper, but they're at a higher risk for falls, frailty, and disease. And this isn't just my opinion. A 2016 study in the International Journal of Obesity found that nearly 30% of people with normal BMI actually had unhealthy body fat levels when tested with more accurate methods. That's almost 1 in 3. So why does this matter? The real story is body composition. We want to know, how much muscle do you have? Muscle is protective, metabolic, and essential for independence. In other words, muscle is not bad. How much fat do you carry, and where is it? That's something that we need to know. Visceral fat around the organs is far more dangerous than subcutaneous fat under the skin. We also want to know, how strong and functional are you? Can you squat? Can you push, pull, carry, balance? Those tests tell us infinitely more than your BMI ever could. Now, measuring true body composition, when it comes to that, DEXA scans, they're the gold standard for fat and lean mass distribution. Now we're finding something out about your actual body composition. Weight to height ratio, it's a simple tape measure test but it still outperforms BMI for health risk. Something I talked about in a recent podcast: grip strength, sit to stand test, balance drills. These are all functional measures of real ability. The beauty is you don't need to overcomplicate it. You can get a far better snapshot of your health by combining body composition with a couple of functional tests than you'll ever get from a BMI chart. By the way, if you're enjoying this podcast, please like, share, and follow us. Someone you may know may still be chasing a BMI as a goal, and they need to hear the truth. And here's where mindset comes in. You know I talk a lot about that, I know. Too many people live and die by the number the doctor circles on a BMI chart. They let it define them. They think, I'm overweight, so I must be unhealthy, or worse, far worse, I'm normal weight, so I must be fine. Both of those can be absolute lies. This is why at Personalized Fitness, our mission is to help people feel better about being themselves by reaching their level of wellness. And that doesn't come from a pseudo measurement like BMI. It comes from building strength, improving movement, balancing nutrition, and creating confidence in your body. Remember, BMI is about average, but you're not average. You're an individual. That's different. And your health deserves more than a math shortcut. We got to get away from something that was used by a mathematician, actually created by a mathematician and statistician to get averages of what a general population looked like. If you really want to know about your health, you need to know true body composition. And there's several ways of measuring that. I mentioned the gold standard DEXA and a few others, but there are even easier tests for doing that. You can buy simple scales that will give you a good idea of what your muscle breakdown and your fat breakdown is. And this will tell you far better than BMI will ever guesstimate. So here's your challenge. Give up on BMI. Stop chasing BMI. It is a complete waste of time. And also, I highly recommend, if you're working with a health professional that is using BMI, especially in our field, you need to find somebody that's measuring true body composition. Somebody that can actually measure your body fat for you, can actually track what you need to know. If you're working on your fitness, track how strong you are. And track how strong you're getting, how much stronger you're getting in your program, how well you move, and how much energy you have. Not just a ratio, a made-up ratio between your height and your weight. If you'd like help getting those real numbers, give us a call at area code 251-278-3343 or visit us online at personalizedfitness.com. If you'd like to set up a consult just to get your body composition measurements, just to find out where you really are, drop me an email, Garrett, Garrett, at personalizedfitness.com. We'll be more than glad to have one of our professionals here take care of that for you. That's it for today's show. I know it's one that I've talked about before. I did a podcast called BMI is a Lie. But just want to reiterate that because recently I've been hearing a lot more talk, as usual, about BMI. We're not putting this to bed. We're putting this in the rearview mirror like we needed to do a long time ago. But I appreciate you listening to the Personalized Fitness Podcast. Listen, as always, please like, share, and shallow. Shallow. I like that. I think I made up a word there. Like, share, and follow. And correcting all the myths about health, fitness, and wellness, especially one where we're measuring your fitness wrong. That's just one more way we help you live your level of wellness. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you next time.